episode 12 is Calum Mckenzie. Calum is Chief Scout at Nairn County. He's also a goalkeeping coach and a football manager research, which we'll have a bit of that on this podcast. Calum spent some time in America coaching. We've actually involved in playing in a charity game with Lothar Matthäus. We speak a bit about what Calum actually looks for when he's scouting players. And his 1 to 11, heavily Rangers, but actually a really, really strong side when you look at it on the basis of it. Calum's also given us some great memorabilia, some of his favourite Rangers tops, match worn tops, and some prized scouting notes that he received a few years ago. I hope you enjoy the episode. Okay, so we're going to get into it. It's going to be episode 12, Calum Mckenzie, Chief Scout at Nairn County, a goalkeeping coach, a big Rangers fan.
Yeah.
And I've actually got here, and you might be able to correct me, a football manager researcher.
I am, yes.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
I'm going to get into some chat about that.
Great game.
Welcome. How are you? I know you're a busy man because you seem to be all over the place. Ryan spotted you in the last couple of weeks. I've kind of been following, I follow Nairn and things like that on social media. I've actually had a look at your CV and I was like, fucking hell, that's something else, mate. That's,
I mean, I just collect job titles at this point, you know. It's, it's.
Is that your job title, Chief Scout?
Yeah, Chief Scout or just the opposition analysis or opposition scout, you know, take your pick. And or goalkeeping coach. So yeah, it's just take your pick, really. You know, I found when I first started, when I got back into football, which we'll get into, I mean, I delved too deep too quick and I just took on all these roles and eventually I had to thin it back, you know, to what was manageable.
I think I'm kind of doing the same myself. I'm going head first and everything. I'm like, give me this and I'll do that.
That's it. It's just keen and enthusiasm and you're like, no, I'll help you. No, I'll help you. And then you realise, I haven't got time for anything, you know. And obviously you've still got your day job to work around as well. So, you know, you've got
family life,
pay the bills and spend time with the wife and you know, family and whatnot. So yeah, you've got to strip it back sometimes. And but I'm at a point now where, you know, Nairn obviously asked me at the start of this week to take on the goalkeepers. So I decided, you know, after I found out how much they were wanting from me, then that was perfect. It worked in perfectly for my life.
It's got to work for you, mate.
Yeah,
it's got to work for you.
That's it.
Okay, let's get started in the questions. How good a football player were you as a kid?
I mean, I would say I was bang average. I was never going to make the professional game.
What position?
Well,
was you a goalkeeper?
I was a goalkeeper. I was a goalkeeper through high school. And then my first season at Elgin Boys, I was a goalkeeper. But I was generally the backup goalkeeper to Kev Main.
Okay.
And you know, that was good because, to be honest, Kev was phenomenal as a goalkeeper, and he obviously went on to have a, you know, distinguished career in the Highland League, and but having him ahead of me made me a better goalkeeper than I would have been, you know, because I had to keep trying, you know, and although I never got past Kev, it did make me a better goalkeeper, but also being able to spend time around him and watch him, and being on the sidelines actually gave me a bit of the coaching bug, because I used to sit and watch the managers, what they wanted from the game, listening to their conversations, you know. Usually they would put me on the field if there was a particular guy causing them problems.
Aye, okay.
And they would just go,
hatchet man.
Aye, Calum, number 7. And they would just, and I would know what to do. And I was like, right, no bother. And on I would go, and then he would be taken off. And then I would be like, I don't know what to do now. Because I'm a goalkeeper, I don't know how to play. And so I transitioned to outfield, and then I played a bit. But I got trials for Ross County under 16s, and then that didn't work out. And then I went to the Welfare League, which is where I got my knee smashed up.
Yeah.
And then I basically had a conversation with a doctor about it, and he was like, well, you can crack on the way you're going, and you'll have a new knee by the time you're 35, or you can just stop.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll just stop, because I'm never going to I would never have made Highland League, so I thought, well, let's not wreck the knee. It was in a bad enough condition as it was, so I just stopped, and I started doing my coaching badges in 99.
Yeah.
So yeah, can't remember how old I was then, but in 99, so I was still pretty young. I was in my teens.
Yeah.
So I think I was about 17.
As young, but it's not as rare now, young people starting to coach at badges, but certainly back then it's unheard of.
Yeah, it was I used to get, what are you doing?
Yeah.
why are you doing them? And it's like, well, because playing's not an option, so I want to still be involved in the game, and
yeah.
I remember I used to tell my my guidance teacher at school must have hated me, because you'd go in every couple of years to your guidance teacher, who would then turn around and be like, go to uni, go to college, and I would just sit there and go, I want to be a football coach in America, and they would be like, yeah, we can't help you with that. Yeah. Maybe set your sights a little bit lower. And I was like, no, I want to be. Then about 2 years would pass, and I'd come back in, and I'd be like, I want to be a football coach in America. Oh, for God's sake, And so I used to go on about that all the time. And then when I stopped playing, I had done a few of the coaching courses under Neil Simpson, when he was the head of development up here for the SFA, and then I did some coaching for some guys who had coached me in the high school teams.
Okay.
And I seen a job now. This is so random, because I'd never really done any coaching properly at this point, and I seen a job online. Obviously, the internet was just in its infancy at that point, and I had seen this job on the internet for coaching in New Jersey in America. I was like, just apply for it.
Yeah.
And it went from there, so it was phenomenal.
It's a mad start.
It's a mad start.
Yeah.
That was my first ever opportunity in coaching, was America. So it was a mad start, a big learning curve, for a personal development and for coaching as well. I learned a lot,
Yeah, well, exactly. It's not just the football lessons you're getting there. That's a huge life adjustment at the same time.
I'd never left home, so
yeah.
and I never told my parents about me applying for this either, because I just thought it was pipe dreams.
Yep.
And so
was it always in yourself to kind of get out and do something further afield?
I was always somebody to just impulsively do something, but I'd always wanted to go and coach in America, because, like I said, I'd said it at school and things like that, and you get laughed at and whatnot. But I was determined, and if anything, that made me more determined to do it. And I remember my mum went back to school for, I think it was something to do with my cousin or something like that, watching a play or something they were in, or music performance. And one of the old teachers had come up to her and said, oh, so what's Michael, my brother, what's Michael doing? And she told him, and she went, well, what's Calum doing? Oh, he's actually out in America coaching. And didn't he always want to do that? He did, yes. Did you? And it was like, it did encourage me to go ahead and just make it happen. And I couldn't have got a better company. They were brilliant, they paid me like something like, I think it was $300 a week. And everything was paid for. So, your accommodation was paid for, your food during the week was paid for. So that $300 was basically your play money every week. And I spent my time going in New York every day after work. We'd finish coaching at 2:00 in the afternoon, and then you were back at the dorms where we stayed. Mm-hmm. Then I would just walk the 2 miles down the mountain, because we lived up in this mountain, and then walk the 2 miles down the mountain and get a train into New York every day by myself. I went in once with a big group of people, but you never got to see what you wanted to, because you had to accommodate everyone. I thought, I'm not going in with everyone again. So that was it. I went in by myself every day and just explored New York, got myself into a couple of situations. Went to places that I probably shouldn't have, and was politely asked to leave, and just some neighborhoods that I wasn't meant to be in. And but yeah, so those are the life lessons that I learned. I mean, I was a wee boy out of Lossy, the kind of guy that would walk up Fifth Avenue and just say hi to everyone. How's it going? What's up? And just a stupid wee boy. But yeah, it was brilliant. Best experience of my life, that one.
You must be the first person I've ever met in my life. I don't know, you saying, Ryan, that has actually followed through with the thing they wanted to do when they were in school.
I mean, I did it pretty young. I peaked too soon, right?
Yeah.
I had a 5-year plan to get to America, and then it was like done, and I was like, I didn't really have a contingency plan for after this. And then I think I kind of went off the boil. After that, I did do some things with community groups with Aberdeen. I did a week's coaching for them. And then got involved with the likes of Elgin City Youths because I knew Charlesworth.
Charlie.
Yeah, Charlesworth through the fact that I had coached Martin Charlesworth at the high school. So I had a good relationship with Martin and Colin through that. I got in touch with Colin through Martin, and he was wanting me to come and coach at Elgin City Youths and that. So I did that. Didn't pan out because I had family stuff going on at the time, and I just experienced some degree of negativity, not necessarily from Elgin, but some negativity towards young coaches and things. And I just decided at that point, I was like, I'm going to take a step back from this until I'm a bit older. And I did what most 20-year-olds did, and went to the pub for a good 10 years.
Standard, mate.
Yeah, just went to the pub, spent most of my life in the beach bar, and then...
rest in peace.
Yes, that's it's gone now. And we were hoping to hold our school reunion there, and that's just literally gone up in smoke.
Yep.
Literally.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan's podcast is named after an area of the beach bar, the northeast corner.
Oh.
Named by the stonemasons, apparently, as we found out later down the line.
But no, that's kind of, I take my hat off to you, because you wanted to do something and you followed it through. You and kind of even faced with people who were like, okay, what the fuck are you doing? You kind of like that. Kind of, a lot of people, especially young people, take that as a massive confidence. But
maybe I shouldn't be doing it. Maybe I am doing this wrong.
You've done the opposite.
Yeah.
Though. So it just kind of shows you a kind of determination in that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was brilliant because I never leaving home before, and the first time I leave home is to go and live, an hour outside New York City. It was in New Jersey in a place called Gladstone. Okay. So I mean, it was quite a well off area that we were living in, and we were living in this old
kind of coaching and thing. Was it
so it was called, the place was called United Soccer Academy. So USA was you
in charge of, like, was there a team or anything like that?
At some weeks, so it was like week to week. So basically the company could be hired by a high school to coach all their different age groups. So they had like varsity, junior varsity, all these kind of things. Okay. And I had 1 week I had a junior varsity team. But the team was too big, so they split it up between me and another coach. And I think I got a team with like 90% defenders. And it was like, great. So we did that. So that was good fun, because they were about 13, 14. So, I mean, I would have been about 19. And coaching them was brilliant. And then you had, like, for example, you had the summer camps as well. So you would have 3 to 5 year olds, you would have then 5 to maybe 8 year olds, 9 to 12, and so on and so forth. A lot of the time I got stuck with 3 to 5 year olds. That was quite daunting, because my first ever coaching session was with 3 to 5 year olds, and I was like, whew. And I had no experience with kids at this point. So, I mean, the only experience as a kid I had was me, because I was still a kid, really.
Yeah, exactly.
And the difference I noticed between a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old is massive.
Huge. I've got a 4-year-old. I'll tell you the difference.
You know what I mean? A 3-year-old, you have no hope. If that child does what you want it to, it's fluke.
Yeah. Yeah.
A 4-year-old might consider your idea.
Yeah.
At least they consider it, you know.
They'll consider it and maybe do it for 30 seconds and then that's it.
That's it, you know. And so it was quite a shock to the system, because And the coaching that we did with them was more fun orientated. So we had games like Cone Man. So like it was to get them to practice kicking the ball where we wanted them to kick the ball. So basically the coach would have like cone on his head, he would have a cone on his arm or cones around his foot, and every time they managed to hit you with the ball below the knee, a cone fell off and eventually Cone Man died. You know, a tragic death.
I quite like that.
Yeah. And so it was games like that we would play with the young 3 to 4 to 5 year olds, and then as they got older, obviously it got more serious. Then it got more competitive, the older age groups. But very much they wanted it to be very much fun related. You know. Yeah. It was
as it should be at that age.
As it should be, because I mean, if they don't, they've got to fall in love with the game first. You know, and. So, I mean, I can't imagine they do that at Ajax, you know.
No.
You know, Cone Man is not in the Ajax framework.
The thing is, though, I'm not a fan of putting 4 or 6 year olds into competitive drilling academies and they must touch the ball 800 times in a session. It's like, no, they need to have fun.
Yeah, they need to fall in love with the game. Yep. You know, they need to, I mean, I was a late interest into football.
Okay.
My older brother was always into football, and I never was. I was the kid in primary school that would run onto the pitch to steal the ball and run off with it and get leathered, you know. So I was that kid until about maybe 10, 11, and then I decided, I kind of like this, when I wanted to be more like my big brother, you know, because he was getting involved in school teams, playing on Saturdays with his mates, and that's how I got out into goalkeeping. I actually had this conversation with my brother when I told him I was coming on, and I was like, I can't remember how I got into goalkeeping. I think you guys just chucked me in goals because I was the young goalie. And he goes, no, you wanted to go in goals because of Andy Gorham.
Okay.
You wanted to be Andy Gorham, so you wanted to go in goals, you know. And I might be the size of Andy Gorham now, but you know, I'd certainly never had that great man's ability, you know.
Fantastic goalie, though.
Oh, aye.
What year was it you were in America, Calum?
2001.
2001. So like,
I've actually got. Sorry,
have I stole your question here?
No, no, keep going.
I was just going to say, like, over the last probably 10 to 15 years, you've seen like a kind of rise in American quality of football, right? Like, you're seeing the players that are producing now playing for better sides where, you know, back in the early 2000s, late 90s, it was kind of seen as a bit of a kind of cartoon Americans being into soccer and stuff like that. Was there ever kind of any tells at that stage that they were going to start producing a better crop of player? Or
I think the passion level they had was very evident at that point. You know, if the Americans put their if they go into something, it's going all, and they just have so much enthusiasm. They get a bad rep, you know. But I never met one that wasn't polite. You know, your sirs, your mams, your thank yous, your pleases was all there, and they really. I often said in 2001 when I was out there, and a lot of the coaches from Britain that were out there said the same, that we would be shocked if they're not competing for a World Cup in 10 years. Obviously, that 10 years has come and gone, but you have seen the development in them. You know, I think you've got to think of American soccer. The birth of it was probably around that time, you know, the late 90s, early 2000s. So if you think of that as, you know, British football back in the 60s, you know, they've still probably got a long way to go.
And it's probably fair to say they're coming up against other juggernauts of institutions of sports, right?
Established ones.
NBA and NFL and all that.
Well, this is it. And it's how you get that to overtake that. Because, I mean, the amount of money the NFL and the NBA bring in is phenomenal, you know. And I did see there was always the enthusiasm from them. And I thought, well, if you can contain that for 20, 30 years, and just try and step it up little by little, then you do have a chance, you know. But the country is almost, it's almost held back by its size, you know. Because I mean, if you think about the MLS, I know people like Jermaine Defoe have spoke about this, and you know, if you're in Seattle and you've got to fly to New York for an away game, that is a tremendously long flight. For an away game, you know, so that adds to it with the tiredness and things. And I know they've got their conferences where they split it.
Yeah, north and south or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like east and central,
east and west.
Yeah. So they do have it that way where they play their mini leagues, and then I think it all kind of comes into the MLS Cup.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and that's the MLS Cup winners is the league winner, you know, and then they go and play in their version of the Champions League with the South American teams, I think, in the Mexican League, and
that's the kind of 2000s is the glory days at MLS. So that's when we had these halfway line penalty shootouts.
Yes, I was going to say that because they did. I mean, when you mentioned that they were, you know, that cartoon kind of, they didn't help themselves with that 35-yard penalty shootout. I mean, I would have been after 90 minutes, and then you're told, right, you've got to run 35 yards to and then score past the keeper. Oh my god. Right, you know, so it is a bit of a daunting thought that. So they didn't help themselves, but I mean, I think America does take things. You know, you mentioned about taking coaching and then maybe adding on a little bit of your own thing. I think America does do that. They take something and then they try and go, well, let's just put this little spin on it. You know, it's either going to work or it's not.
Let's see how we can add, like, not literally, but let's steroid this up a bit. You know, let's beef it up a bit.
Beef it up and make it more exciting.
Yeah,
you know, because I think that's how soccer football was perceived as not exciting enough. You know, because it's continual action.
Yeah.
And if you think about the NBA and the NFL,
there's a lot more kind of show to it. Yeah.
There's a lot more show, a lot
Obviously,
more bang for your buck, and there's a lot more stoppages.
Yep.
You know, with
advertising
and things like that. Whereas soccer, you know, well, yeah, you could have a lot of advertising, but you're going to miss a lot of the game. Yeah. You know, so
I think a lot of the American sport is built on the experience and not the sport itself. It's going down, it's spending your $40 on your food, and there's
the family experience, basically, right?
Yeah, 100%. Do you want to give Ryan a little snippet of information on the day the actual day that you left America?
The day. Well, yeah. Well, the day I left. Well, it was 2 days before.
Yeah.
I left America on the 9th of September 2001.
I knew that was coming.
So I have this lasting memory of, we flew from Newark Airport in New Jersey, and so that flies into America and then curls out over the ocean, and you have to basically go over New York City. So it was a nighttime flight. My lasting impression of New York was the whole city lit up, but especially the Twin Towers.
World Trade Center, yeah.
You know, World Trade Center, the Empire State Building, all lit up with the lights and things, and that was my last ever memory. I mean, I was up the Twin Towers that day on the 9th of September. I mean, I'm probably quite a rare person to say that I've been up the Twin Towers twice, you know, in my lifetime. Yeah. I mean, I went up once in 93, and I think that was after they had been bombed the first time. And then I left America. I'm probably on a list somewhere, you know, don't let that guy back in, because I left after, and then obviously 2 days later, I remember obviously my girlfriend at the time, she messaged me saying, you know, I was coming back from college, and she messaged me at the time saying, have you seen what's happened? And I was like, she told me what happened. I was like, stop it, you know. I got home just in time to see it happening, and it was like, wow, okay, that's surreal. Because I was quite worried at the time, because a friend Craig that I'd made out there, Welsh guy, he was meant to be going to a conference there at the time, so I was trying to get hold of him, but obviously you could not phone. You know, you could not get through to anyone, so it was really about 2 weeks before I found out that he was okay, you know. So but yeah, it was surreal. I didn't think I was going to get on the plane going home anyway, because they had spelt my name wrong. It was a common annoyance of mine, because I would spell it with double L and I'm one L, and they'd spelt my ticket with two L's, and Mckenzie was MAC and mine Mckenzie is MC. So I was like, I'm not going to get on this plane because it doesn't match my passport. And I'm pretty sure if it was after September 11th, I probably wouldn't have.
No.
You'd still be there now.
I wouldn't have
Guantanamo
gone,
Bay or something.
That's it. I mean, I did have the chance to stay. They did ask me to stay. Because I was only on I think it was a 5 month contract, I think.
Okay.
But they did ask me to stay longer, and I was like, no, I've got Murray College to go to. I chose Murray College over staying in America.
Right choice, it seems though.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's like I got my NC in sports rec. You know, so it's like
it's all worth it.
It's all worth it. I mean, everything happens for a reason. So
I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. So
that's it. I mean, I did have just to segue a bit here. I did. I met some. You know, I was lucky. I mean, I seem to be quite fortunate in my life where I bump into certain famous people and things, and I bumped into Steve Austin, Stone Cold Steve Austin,
fantastic,
at a petrol station, or gas station, sorry, and I also had a run in with Usher in Times Square as well. So it's just I seem to bump into these people, and I'm just some stupid lad from the council estate, you know what I mean? It's like,
hi.
I remember standing in this group of people, and I had my rucksack on, and I had my cap on, and I was just standing there, and all these guys were around me, and I'm like, what's going on? And they were like, oh, it's Usher. And I did not know who Usher was at this point, and I was just like, all right. Of course it is. And he came out and he just shook his hand and things like that, and I'm like, all right, okay, I'm gonna go away to get a burger. And then it meant nothing to me, and then it wasn't until I got home that he really kind of, the last next few months, that he kicked off, and I was like, all right, I met him. Yeah, sure you did. No, I did. It's like
Nobody believed
in me.
That's magic. We've kind of literally sidged through quite a few questions with that. It's magic though.
Throwing you off now.
You have. So it's literally 1, 2. You've done the first 3 or 4. So my next question is going to be: who was your idol growing up? You're a Rangers fan, so
I am. Yeah. So I would have to say there's kind of 2 from Rangers, and that was Andy Gorham, and from his spell at the club, Ali Maxwell, who was his deputy for all those years. You know, he won the Scottish Cup with Motherwell, and I always thought he was a very highly underrated goalkeeper. You know, he never got much opportunities. I mean, he did have the one season at Rangers where he played majority of it, because I think Gorham had personal problems at the time, so Walter Smith had kept him out for most of the season, so he had that one season with Rangers where he was the number 1, and I kind of resonated with him a little, because obviously I was never number 1, you know. So he was my kind of backup goalie hero, and then the guy I wanted to be was Andy Gorham, you know. He was just my kind of goalkeeper, you know. He was just massively into like shot stopping, you know. He was an amazing shot stopper, reflex for a big guy. He could get down, you know.
Absolutely.
He was just amazing, and I think broke many Celtic hearts for many a year.
Single-handedly played against Celtic sometimes, because I started supporting Celtic in the Decanio years, so a wee bit late to the scene with the Rangers kind of 9 in a row. Just kind of caught the tail end of it. But I remember my dad's a massive Celtic fan, and I remember my dad saying Celtic would be all over Rangers for 90 minutes, and Gorham would just be hitting everything away. You know?
I think there's that famous Tommy Burns quote in it, you know, where he said, what was he said? I think he said something about, Andy Gorham broke his heart or something like that, you know, or was, you know, basically his nightmare. And, if it hadn't been for Andy Gorham, I think Celtic could have won a league, you know.
He was nicknamed the goalie as well.
You know, the goalie, and then obviously you had Stefan Klos as their goalie, you know.
He's fantastic.
You know, I mean, we were lucky to have such good goalkeepers, you know, and I think it was the early 2000s where we struggled to find a goalie.
Charbonnet and things like that coming in.
I have got a Charbonnet memorabilia. I've got an actual match-worn shirt from him from his first game.
That's nuts. He's a French international as well.
Yeah, he's like, hang on, let me get this out. Because I've got a pile of shirts. So there we go.
I remember that one.
It was one of my favourite ones because it reminds me of Stefan Klos, to be fair. And I think Andy Gorham wore it as well.
Yep.
So that's you can see it's AFAB worn.
I might burst into flames if I touch it. But
so I must confess, awesome. It has been washed, right? Because it did start to smell. So
do you want me to go check the camera, make sure that's in frame, Lee?
I'll kind of hold it up.
You can see the monitor, can't you?
It's only the only time you see me holding up any Rangers gear. Like,
Again, is that the truth? We had this conversation
we had
earlier.
this conversation earlier. We won't get back into that.
That's my Charbonnet tee. I remember wearing it to high school PE once, and my friend Mark was like, big Rangers fan, family was a big Rangers fan. He's like, what are you doing wearing that? And I was like, oh, it's on my goalie top, you know. And it's like, I didn't care at that point. I just wanted to wear it because Charbonnet had weared it, because he was good, you know. He didn't get long at the club.
I remember the goalies. You had Charbonnet. You had a guy called Jesper Christensen. Do you remember him?
Yeah, a Danish keeper. We had. I mean, I know in we had, was it Lionel Letizzi at some point?
Yeah,
ex-PSG goalie, and he for whatever reason just did not.
Ronald Vateris.
Yeah, he came in with McLeish and things, you know. I think he came from Man City. I think
he wasn't the greatest.
He wasn't the greatest. I don't think he had some good games, but he never settled either. No. You know, he didn't stay long either. So there was a couple of keepers that just kind of rinsed through after Kloss.
After Kloss, like you've got Kloss and Gorham. But I look back at the Celtic goalies. We didn't have strong goalies, but Johnny Gould, who was a decent enough goalie. Yeah. He wasn't world class.
I mean, I remember Celtic when I was young. I mean, with Gordon Marshall and Pat Bonner. You know,
Pat Bonner, brilliant
keeper. You know, so yeah, there was Gordon Marshall and Pat Bonner, and I mean, I remember them playing Elgin City. I went to see Celtic versus Elgin City in '93, '94 as a pre-season friendly, and I think it was. Gordon Marshall was in goals at that time, and Mark McNally was in centre back, and God, even my mum to this day, she was at the game with us. She took us to the game because we were only little, and she says she spent the whole game going, he's just yelling at him, and he would not get off the boy's back. I mean, Mark McNally must have been about 18 at the point, you know, and I think Malky Mackay played in that game as well. I think he was a kid in that as well. There was a few first teamers like John Collins, Tom Boyd, Rudy Vata, so Rocco Vata's old man.
First I don't call it that anymore. So I was at my first Glasgow derbies, and just before.
Why is that? Why?
We're not getting into that, Calum. No chance. We'll be here all night. And actually bumped into Tom Boyd.
Oh, really?
I think he does player liaison or fan liaison up in the kind of. I was in the fancy stand, I call it. It's where I was in the stand with all the directors and that.
Yeah.
A good few rows away from him than that, but just kind of find my way in. I'm like, that's Tom Boyd. That's Tom Boyd. He's showing me where the hot dogs are.
It is surreal when you meet these people and you're like, oh God, you are just human.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy, isn't it?
You eat hot dogs?
Okay, so when did you first do a bit of scouting?
So my first bit of scouting was actually with Nairn. It was 2002. It was through Kyle Stewart, who was coaching at Lossy at the time, and he had a Pylon League career himself, you know, with Lossy and Rothis and the likes. And I coached him when I coached Martin Charlesworth for the high school football team, so we kind of always knew each other. And he would tell me when we were down coaching about scouting, and he does a bit for scouting for Aberdeen, and I was like, that sounds really interesting. So I was doing a lot of my coaching courses at the time because I had to do refreshers because it was about 20 years, as I said, I stopped for a while, so I had to do more. And I did my 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 Scout Talent ID, very focused around, you know, finding individuals, you know, what to look for, what to be aware of, these kind of things. And then I thought, I like this. And then I branched out and started doing the PFSA, so the Professional Football Scouts Association courses, which then got into the more technical side, so technical scouting, opposition scouting, analysis courses, these kind of things, data analysis. So I learned a lot through that. Now it's like I get people reaching out to me on LinkedIn all the time saying, you know, are the PFSA courses, are they CPD, you know? And I'm like, no, they're not. But from a personal development point, to invest in yourself,
100%,
they're priceless, you know.
I'm just going to point out for anyone listening, CPD, when you work for the SFA, they want you to continuously progress yourself, and you have to put in so many coaching hours or so many hours in the classroom or courses and that every year to keep up your continuous professional development. Is that right, what I'm saying?
That's it, yeah. So, I mean, they aren't accredited in that fashion, but they are backed by a lot of Premier League footballers that have done these courses, and they're fantastic courses. The depth that they go into is just amazing. And so I did them, and I spent all my money. I spent money on that for myself because I'd seen it as investing in me. And then Kyle messaged me one day and said, "Oh, have you seen this?" and sent me a screenshot of Nairn looking for opposition scouts. You know, I mean, no experience necessary, just a good love of the game. You know, you can work on it as you go, basically.
Yeah.
And I think Nairn's hope was, look, if we can get enough reports in, there'll be a nugget of gold in there somewhere that we can use every now and then. You know, so I thought, well, I can jump on board of that. So I sent them my CV. And then I got a message back within a few hours from Graham, the director of football, just saying, yeah, you could jump on board. And we've got this game in, I think this was November, December 2022. Yeah. It was scheduled me for one game. It was Clach, and then that game got called off because of the weather. And then I got scheduled for another game. That game got called off for the weather. So I think it was the 7th of January before I eventually got around to seeing a game, and it was first game I ever scouted was Rothes versus Brechin City. So that was I think it was a 1-0 win for Brechin at the time. But yeah, that and then I just did what I perceived they would want, you know.
Yeah.
So I was lucky that I'd obviously done the PFSA courses because they give you a template to work off of. So I kind of knew how to set it up. So I created my own template and then just went from there. And that template has now just grown arms and legs into this. I normally send Nairn about a 12 or 13 page report on teams, and it goes into things like, I mean, I try and put a little bit of data in there, so I sit and work out, I go through all the results and work out when goals were scored, how often they score, at what phase in the game do they score. So for example, does this next opposition, do they concede more in the first 15 minutes of the second half? You know, so basically, do they start slow? Is that the time that we should be looking to push them and press them and get on top of them to score? So it's just looking into things like that from an opposition analysis, just looking for advantages, you know, opportunities, weaknesses. You know, is there a defender that's relatively smaller than your strikers are?
Yeah.
You know, does he back off from physical contact? You know, it's like someone like Ben Barron. You know, he's quite a handful up front. He would walk all over somebody that kind of took a yard off him.
Absolutely.
And so it's knowing what players your squad have, and then trying to put that into words to tell them, like, you could take advantage of this because of X, Y, and Z. Like Horace Ormsby's got a lot of pace, you know, really good with his feet. You know, if their right back wanders too far forward, he could get in behind them, and it's just little things like that, you know. And
is it known about, for example, with him, you know, right, if we can get him one-on-one with a certain fullback,
take him, you know,
we've got a goal here.
Yeah, you know, at least to get an opportunity into the box. Do you know what I mean? Where you've got someone like Ben Barron who could either, you know, head it down or hold it up, you know, and so it's just working out that, you know, who goes up for corners, who stays back, these kind of things. So although a lot of it is obvious, you'll get what you put into it, you know. And I was really grateful to Nairn because they've been so good to me. And you know, within a few weeks, I had Stevie Mackay, the boss, phoning me, just thanking me for my reports, and I just thought, well, that's cool. You didn't need to do that, you know.
Yeah.
So I got a good feel for the club straight away, and Graham himself as well. He's always been really helpful. They're always, you know, polite enough to answer my many pestering texts. So, you know, because like I said, I'll talk for Britain, and I'll especially talk about football. I'll talk your ear off. So, as Stevie said to me, I said that to him once, and he was like, "Look, I don't mind. That's why we've got you, because that's what you want from someone, in that position." So, yeah, the club's been really great, So I've been doing that since technically December 2022, but January 2023. And yeah, it's like I kind of evolved the role into, if I see a player, then I'll maybe make a little section about that player, what I liked about him, maybe what his weaknesses as well, because that's what it's about as well. It's like, I think some scouts can be too scared to write bad things, It's like, because they just want to write, they're really good at this and they're really good at that. And you're like, well, you've got to have an equal balance here, because, for example, you'll get a lot of players online trying to make it in the game, and they'll send you these videos of them. Here's my highlights. Yeah. Cool. Where's your bad bits?
Yeah.
Because that's another thing as well. It's not a bad thing to have bad qualities. They are what you need to work on. Yep. So you've got to give a scout or a coach, if you're sending out these videos, the level playing field to look at you and go, right, okay, I'm only seeing the good bits.
Yes,
because you have gone through your matches, and you've taken your highlights, and you've not shown your bad bits. So there is pros and cons to doing that. So you might as well show them both, both sides of your game, but yeah, back to the club. They've been brilliant, and obviously, like I said, they've just brought me on doing the goalkeepers as well, and being involved in the last 2 matches has been really great, because I really get to see the team while they're playing. I think that will benefit the scouting reports as well, because I can see Nairn's strengths and weaknesses, so I can apply that better to my reports and maybe take advantage of things, so I do think being in and around the squad at training and in match days will really help my reports, so that's basically one of the reasons why I decided to do it as well, and they asked me nicely.
So I'm not going to ask you like your finer details of what you do, your scouting, because that's obviously, like, within every club's got their own way of doing it, and you don't want to be giving away certain things and that. But I'm going to ask you, because I'm genuinely interested myself, because I help, myself and Dominic and Matthew, we do an adult squad, and we're always looking to add players. So I'm going to give you what I look for in a player, and you maybe tell me if I'm going right, I'm going wrong, and then maybe tell me what you look for in a player for an adult squad. Yeah. I might start with a youth player, because for me, a youth player, the biggest thing for me is coachability. As long as they're coachable and they're keen and the attitude kind of focused on football, you can coach technical, you can coach physical to a certain point. They're obviously going to grow to whatever size they grow, but you can coach a physical game. You can coach them get their head on the ball and get involved in tackles and things like that. But first and foremost, I'm probably looking at technical ability for adults, especially as we're an amateur side. Technical ability is quite keen. Not all the guys are the fittest of guys. After that, I'm probably looking at their physical game. And then I'm probably looking at their mental game, because I'm only working these guys 1 day a week, so don't really get a chance to see too much the mental side of it. Me working 3 or 4 sessions a week, I could work more than that. Would you say that's the right approach for?
Yeah, I mean, like you touched on it before. The question was, it depends on what style of play you're wanting to play, and what level you're at. For example, I mean, without going into specifics, like Stevie's told me previously how he wants to play, so I know what to look for, or I think I do, and then it's up to them, I mean, I think I've recommended about maybe 3 or 4 players in my time, and it's not a dig at me if they don't want them, so it is just literally. This guy looks good. I think he would fit in. I think he would work well with this style of play. So for what you were saying, like mentality, the mentality of a player is important, I think, because that works into like coachability. Do you know what I mean? Are they wanting to work? How hard do they want to work? I think I spoke to you before the podcast started about being the right coach for somebody as well. I'm quite a relaxed coach. I don't really yell. And some people see it as a negative side of it, but I don't. I will talk to people, and I would like to have I like to think that I make an impression on them, and I can ask them nicely to do something. I mean, most of the people I work with are adults, so I treat you like an adult. It's don't have to mollycoddle you. But
and most of the guys you're working with can play football.
Yeah, that's it. Do you know what I mean? They can. But I mean, I've worked with people who, at high school level, who maybe were like myself and never going to. There was a ceiling.
Yes.
So and everyone's ceiling is different. So, but I would always give them the chance. And I believe, and when you start talking about coachability, there, it reminded me of a quote that I once seen. It's always stuck with me from Brian Clough. And he once said that I can't teach someone to play football.
Yeah,
you can or you can't. What I can do is I can make you better, but I can't make someone that can't play football play football. So get better at football. So, and that always stuck with me. And I think that's that's a good bit of an insight. It's probably one of his more uncontroversial quotes.
Yes. But it's so true. You've got to have that football in you, essentially, before you're even trying to be coached into techniques or anything like that. You've got to want to play the game, because we went back to the start. It starts with the love of the game, and at that young age, 4 to, I'd argue, if I had my way, I wouldn't be coaching any kids, any tactics till about 10, 11 years old. I just think 6-a-side games, 7-a-side games, perfect at that age. You don't need to be teaching a kid 14 different formations. They don't need to know the roles of a Mazzala or a trequartista. It's pointless. It's absolutely pointless. Once they start getting to 13, 14's age,
then they should be taking it seriously and just starting to look at it. I know it's still called their development stage at that point, and I know a lot of the places, they don't really have league tables for that age. Just to stop that kind of, it's to encourage the development of them rather than the win-loss ratio. Whereas, I mean, I don't think as a player I ever really cared much about league tables, and even in the Elgin boys and stuff. I just my aim was I want to go on the field and I want to have fun. And that was it. And sometimes that was my fun was when I played outfield mainly in Elgin boys because I got more game time. And that did help me. It made me better. And I mean, I was a very physical player, so I would just smash into somebody, if I was particularly bored in one game or I just wanted to make an impression, and I would just go through somebody. And
there ain't no bookings down there.
No, there was nothing back then, and it's even back then. I mean, this was before the tackle from behind rule came in, and it was not saying it's right, just the way it was. And so
I don't mind a bit of that.
That's it. So I mean, I was a very physical player, and you mentioned the hatchet player, and earlier on, I mean, that's what my mate Mark that I mentioned, his dad Terry, he used to call me Hatchet, and still calls me. Will still shout Hatchet to me if he sees me around the street. Hatchet, right, Terry. And so it's it's a name that stuck with me with Terry and Mark, and I got a voice note off him when Mark the other day, lives out in Canada now, but he sent me a voice note, and generally he will call me Hatchet in it at least once, It's like, so it stuck with me. So I was a very physical player, but going back to your original thing of, I think they're right. You do need to be coachable. You do need to see some technical ability there, and for the group that you will have, fitness isn't maybe always going to be there, but you need to be able to read the game. Little things like that, being able to read the game, being able to try and predict, what your teammates are going to do when you're supposed to make a run. That's the coachable part. You've got to be able to teach them that. So some people have a faster, football brain than others, and those are the ones that tend to excel because they can read the game. You know, people that are scanning. You know, I think I've seen that. I think there's a famous video.
I said it a few episodes back. I've found as I get older, because I still play football and that, I still do five-a-sides as often as I can, still play Thursday nights, and I've not done it for a while because I've been more coaching and that, but I will get involved. And the game, as you get older, slows down, and it's not you or the game slowing down, it's because you're reading the game a lot better, you're getting more experience.
You're looking about a lot more. I mean, I did find, I went back and played a bit of football a few years ago, and I did find, because my pace is gone, and it's like
I'd like to say mine's gone, but I never had any.
I mean, I was rapid when I was a kid, and so rapid, and it's gone, much like my hair. It left me a long time ago. So
Doesn't hurt, mate.
It doesn't. And it did allow you. So when you do play, you are at a walking pace. You know. So when you get the ball, you are looking a bit more now. You know, I've got quite a big build to me, so I was always able to hold people off. You know, and until you see the pass come available. You know, the right pass. But yeah, I just don't have the fitness levels to keep that up for more than about 10 minutes now.
That's the one thing I've got left. Like I'm quite a good runner. I'll go out and do like a lot of long distance running and that. And I like to, if anyone wants to challenge me on this, feel free. But I like to think I'm fitter than any of the players in my squad, apart from maybe one, and that would be Neil. But I like to think I'm fitter, and I like to, when I'm coaching a session, be on top of my game, doing things. If my guys are doing, we do fines and things like that for lateness to training, and if my
standards, you know.
If my guys are doing 5 laps of the pitch, I'll be at the front of that 5 laps. Like, no worries, I will lead by example, and I think
the pace.
Absolutely, it's what you need. Okay, right, we're going to move it on a wee bit. I'm just kind of going to work. I'm not going to do my questions in order because we've kind of been picking and
zigzagged around the place, haven't we?
So I've got a good one here. What was it like to play against Lothar Matthäus?
Yeah, that one I didn't even know in advance was happening. It was a charity match when we were out in the States that the company had been asked to be involved in. So the coaches were basically the squad. And that was a mixture of older people and people that played at a semi-professional level back home that were out there coaching. And so there was a real mixture. But it was against the New York, New Jersey Metro Stars. So that is what New York Red Bulls were before Red Bull came along.
Yeah.
They had Lothar Matthäus play for them. He had just stopped playing for them that season, the end of that season, but he had come back in for this charity match. Yeah. And none of us knew that he was going to be playing. So we played a charity match against him at Giant Stadium in New York, which was a thing just in its own, being in Giant Stadium, you know. It's just absolutely massive, and it's quite one of the more iconic stadiums in America. And then we've seen like the team sheet of Lothar Matthäus on it, and I'm like, oh jeez. It's like 2-time Ballon d'Or winner, you know. And it's like, and then I had to go up front. And I'm just standing there, and he's obviously started off as a midfielder, but as he's got older, just moved back into that old-fashioned sweeper role. And he's marking me at one point, and I'm thinking, you didn't need to mark me, mate. You know, you're honestly wasted. There are far better players on it. And I was saying that to him, you know, and I don't know if he understood much of my Lossy accent back then. And you know, he just kind of looked at me, and I was just like, all right, you do you, pal. And then, but yeah, it was surreal. A bit like what you were saying about Tom Boyd, and you're just looking at him going, oh, God. And you're not even watching the corner come in. You're just sitting there like, oh, dear. You know, and you're like, because he's massive, you know. And, you know, I don't know what it is about professional footballers, but I've yet to meet a small one.
They're all huge.
They're all huge.
You ever met a professional footballer player, right?
Well, we talked about it in my episode, that encounter I might have had with Phil Jones.
Phil Jones, big guy though, they're all huge.
They're built
even
like machines.
Like Alan, he says, oh, I'm only 5'11". I'm like, Alan, you're at least 6'1". In my head, I'm thinking, you're 6'1". There's no way. There's no way.
I was, 19 at the time. I felt 9. You know, it's like I felt like a 9-year-old looking at a 19-year-old and being like, oh God, just his build, you know what I mean? And I don't know if it's because in my head there was this, he's got this stature in the game, you know? And I was just like, oh my God, I'm just some wee boy from the Lossy Council Estate. I'm from there. I grew up in Fair Isle Place across the way there. And, you know, it's like I'm standing next to Lothar Matthäus and it's like, Jesus. I stayed away from him for the rest of the game. And I mean, fitness-wise, I was a lot better back then. But I only had about 20 minutes on the pitch and I did my bit and I was off. And then it's like, I was proud that I could always just say, wow, I got marked by Lothar Matthäus. That's how dangerous I was.
That's a claim to fame, mate. You'll take that. Okay. In your opinion, who is the greatest football player of all time?
Right. Well, I'm going to be a bit controversial maybe here, but I tend to stay away from the Ronaldo Messi thing. And because I think we get stuck in a bit where we're like, we only look at the last couple of years and we forget about people that came before, you know. So I mean, my GOAT, if you like, would be someone like Marco van Basten. Would be that, because I mean, if you think about it, he really did have a relatively short career, you know. It ended at 28. You know, his last game was in the, I think it was the last ever European Cup final before it became the Champions League, Marseille AC Milan.
Yes.
When Bolle scored the, I'm not going to say a Rangers legend, he was useless. And but he scored the winner against AC Milan and he played in that. And he did play for Milan technically for 2 more years, but he didn't play.
Yeah.
And then it was about 95 he retired. I think he played about 280 odd games and he scored 200 and plus goals. He won the Ballon d'Or 3 times. He won, I think it's Scudetto, he won 4, he won 3 Eredivisie, amongst other
that
cups.
Goal in the European Championships.
The goals in the European, the volley in the European Championships, do you know what I mean? And he, for all the accolades that he had got in this short, brief career, I think it gets forgotten.
It does,
you know, against the longer term careers, you know, and I think we've been very, very lucky with the fact that Messi and Ronaldo have been around for so long.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like they've been around for 40 years.
Do you guys, this is like an open question, do you guys feel that's a testament to the modern game that these guys are, do you think if Messi and Ronaldo were about when players were still getting kicked to pieces?
Yeah, they might, I doubt they would be, you know.
I think it's just because everyone's so obsessed with like stats, particularly goals and assists now. Like I'm someone that's
true.
like big on like moments. Like I know I've said it a few times, but the Ronaldinho getting the round of applause at the Bernabeu and that's groundbreaking stuff because it goes beyond what football is. That goes to rivalry and tribalism, and that broke all that barriers. Do you know what I mean? So I obviously I appreciate them as football players, but I think that I'm someone that's definitely more kind of a kind of hopeless romantic with football. Like I love like Zidane volley in Glasgow and all that type of stuff, you know. So
that's my GOAT, Zidane.
Yeah.
I just think when I think of the greatest player of all time, I love Messi, I love Ronaldo, I love Maradona. R9 was a big one for me. But I think of like somebody who can do everything, and I mean like. You put Zidane up front, he wouldn't look out of place. You put Zidane at centre back, wouldn't look out of place. But for a period of 10 years, he was the best midfielder in the world, and there wasn't anyone near him when you had an era of, I'm trying to think, Edgar Davids, you had Patrick Vieira, you had Roy Keane. Zidane shot over every single one of them, twice the player, and he always produced on the big stage as well. Yeah. Have you ever watched the documentary?
Yeah. I mean, I think, even the likes of, he was around with the likes of Beckham and Figo and, you know, and even played in the same team as them, you know. I think that, I watched the David Beckham documentary, and I think he said to David Beckham said that when they played against him, he was like, "Oh, you come to Madrid?" It's like, he must have turned his head a bit, that one, you know, that comment, you know, when he asks you, not only for your shirt, but then
quite right,
come and play for Madrid, you know, and
it's quite an honour that.
Yeah, you know what I mean, coming from him, and I think He's another one that doesn't get enough credit, David Beckham. You know, I think we forget that what a player he was. You know,
I think he was kind of swallowed by that whole celebrity status thing, really, wasn't it? And then everyone, especially when he made the move to LA Galaxy, not to put down the American League, but everyone, because he went from United, which was obviously a successful period under Ferguson, and then went to almost a struggling Real Madrid side at the time. They couldn't get out of the last 16 in the Champions League, and then they won La Liga, and then he went straight from there to LA Galaxy. Yeah. But then he came back with PSG as well, didn't he, for a bit?
Yeah, and AC Milan.
AC Milan,
yeah. I think, and I think he did prove himself at Milan and PSG. You know, because he did earn the England recall while he was back at PSG.
Well, I actually watched him. I think it was at a Man United Legends game. I think it was. I can't remember who it was for again, but Ole Gunnar Solskjaer played in that. But he was like head and shoulders above. Like he could still play now, and he's
I think that was the one that Brooklyn played in as well.
Aye.
That was odd having two Beckhams on the pitch.
No, just a quality player.
Yeah, but Van Basten's mine, because I just think winning 3 Ballon d'Ors. The guy only played 280 odd games. Do you know what I mean? And he's won 3 Ballon d'Ors. He won, I think it was 3 Champions Leagues. You know, he won 3 European
trying to think
Cups.
who he'd been up against. You're probably talking up against players like Platini and that at the time.
And
for him.
The AC Milan team that he was part of, you know, I mean, they had the what did they used to call it? It was the something triangle, where they had Rijkaard, Hullet, and Van Basten in that team. And then at the back, you had the likes of Baresi, Costa Curta, Maldini, Rossi in goals. You know, it's and when you consider, I mean, someone like Rossi, he was on my list as well for favourite goalkeepers. I mean, he never got capped by Italy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy because, I mean, if you look back at the 90s Italian, I mean, I was very big into Italian football in the 90s because it was always on a Sunday. You had Scudetto football on Sunday.
Well, I'm trying to think. You had Peruzzi, Pagliuca,
Toldo, you had Zenga.
Walter Zenga, I forgot about him.
Zenga, you had Rossi, you had do you know this? I think I made a list.
Was it?
Speaking of Serie A, can I bring up a random fact? It's not the funny one.
Okay, you go for it.
1993-1994 Serie A season, AC Milan won Scudetto, scoring 36 goals.
Yep.
And Atalanta and Udinese both got relegated, scoring 35.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is the kind of emphasis on compactness, defending and stuff like that. The nation's really been associated with for so long, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Do you want my little fact while we're here on goalkeepers?
Okay.
No player has scored more goals against Manuel Neuer than Cristiano Ronaldo, and he's never played in the Bundesliga.
Oh, just from Champions League games?
From Champions League games.
Yeah.
Is that must be for Real Madrid against Bayern all the time, though?
And Juventus.
Right enough.
So,
dear God.
I think I read the hour mark, by the way, mate.
Just at the hour, perfect.
I think just to say quickly, I think was it on TalkSport? I can't remember which one of the commentators said it, but at that point they said that if Haaland was to go on and score as many goals as Ronaldo, he would need to score, I think at that point, was it 53 a season for the next 18 years? Yeah. And it was like
insane.
Yeah, that's happening. Yeah.
just quickly, did any of you see Inter Miami versus Al Nassr the other day?
Yeah, 6-0.
6-0.
Did that go ahead, did it?
Yeah, 6-0 Ronaldo's team.
I was in Saudi.
Amrabat Laporte scored from the halfway line.
He did, yeah.
So
just from a goalkeeping point of view, that keeper was tremendously in the wrong place.
Do we think that there might have been a brown envelope somewhere?
I think Messi only played half a game or something.
I think he did, yeah.
I think it's mad what Saudi are doing. Like, I think they put £100 million on the table for that game to be staged.
But the YouTuber I Show Speed was playing for Al Nassr.
Oh,
was he?
Yeah. So there is some.
There's something going on.
There's something going on.
Because he went up and he was shaking their hands at the start and he called Sergio Busquets biscuits.
Oh dear.
He's like, "Hi Biscuits," and I was like looking at him like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Like, Italian keepers, who you got?
It was just in fact the only one I missed off was Buffon, because he was the young Buffon at Parma. Yeah. He was at Parma at the time.
Quality keeper. Yeah. We've had quite a few Buffons for our 11s.
I mean, there was some great non-Italian goalkeepers in Italy as well. But I mean, those Italian goalkeepers, you had about 6 that could walk into the Italy team at that point
easily.
And you can understand then why Rossi never got capped. But
and it all falls down from probably watching Dino's off when they were growing up.
Yeah.
You know,
he had that, and even Buffon's old man as well.
Yeah.
He was highly rated as well. So yeah, I mean, like you said, it probably comes down to the defensive minded of the Italian game, you know.
Catenaccio.
Yeah, and it's just I loved watching it. I think it helped that you had the likes of Platt and Gaza over there at the time.
Flair players.
Yeah, and it just kind of brought the British interest into it, you know.
Yeah.
And then I grew up watching people like, you know, Hulett, and then I was dead excited because I remember Hulett coming to Chelsea, and he was probably the first real
Big
superstar name to come into England, into probably a bang average Chelsea team at the time,
yeah.
you know. And I think he started at centre back. I think he played a sweeper, and then they eventually moved him forward.
Played in behind the striker in the end, didn't he?
Yeah, because he joined at the same time as Mark Hughes, I think, from Man United. So yeah,
that was when Chelsea were before the Abramovich years, but they were still spending crazy money.
And Stevie Clark was still in the team.
That's right. I had 12 million on Torre Andre Flo, and Chris Sutton was a big flop for them, and
Gus Poyet as well. Not a flop, but like he was
a quality player.
Chris Sutton ended up having a bang average career, didn't he?
Just a bit. He's actually a better pundit, I think.
Yeah. Oh, he's funny.
Okay, favourite current player?
Favourite current player? Oof. Who do I enjoy watching?
Anyone in, like, I kind of like the Scottish football, and then maybe world football.
And world football. In Scottish football, I would say my favourite current player.
Anyone at Rangers you like just now?
Rangers, I mean, I was a big fan of Morelos until he left. You know, I just liked the fact that he wound folk up. Yep. You know, just he was a wind-up merchant. You know, and I loved that, and I still think he should be playing for us.
Scott Brown without skill.
I just don't. I don't care how lazy he was. Right? Yeah. You know, I really enjoyed him. He made it worth it for me. You know, and I like players like that. You know, and that just kind of make you, that piques your interest. And I do from the current Rangers squad. Again, it's not really current. Again, I did enjoy Ryan Kent as well, you know, and I do think we overpaid for him, to be fair, but I did enjoy him as well.
Just had his contract torn up at Fenerbahce.
Has he?
Yeah.
Has he finally had it torn up?
I'm being a bit back to front here, but can you move that mic a little bit away from you?
Oh wait, there we go.
Yeah,
the opposite tonight.
I didn't know he had it ripped up. I knew he was wanting out because he was going on loan somewhere, I think.
I think he's refusing to learn the language as well.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
I don't think it worked straight away.
No.
You know what I mean? But I've not known any British players to go to Turkey or and have it work out, because you had the likes of Butland go to Turkey. You had a couple of English goalkeepers at the time go to Turkey and they didn't work out. They came back. You had the likes of McGregor went, Alan McGregor went.
I'm trying to think. The only person I can ever remember, and it's a strange one, working in Turkey, is I'm pretty sure Les Ferdinand had a spell in Turkey early in his career, and it was kind of the making of him.
I think he did actually.
Yeah.
I think he did actually. He had a spell at some random team anyway. Yeah.
There was a thing with British players going to Norway for a little while. I remember Crouch was away to Norway and players like that.
Iceland and things like that. Do you know what I mean?
Graham Potter, he had a career in Norway as well for a while.
And I think he managed in Sweden and places like that as well. And Scandinavia, you know, I think it's a good place. You know, I mean, I'm a big fan of people who learn the trade under the radar. You know, it's you know, I always say about like Alex Ferguson. He learned his trade at St Mirren St Mirren and East Stirling. You know, and then went up to Aberdeen, then went to Man United. You know, and Martin O'Neill plied his trade at Wycombe. You know, and then got the Leicester job. I don't think we should do what John Barnes did, and that was jump straight in at the Celtic job. You know, it's like, I'm a big fan of just, you know, make your mistakes. Like Fergie's always said, make your mistakes at the bottom and no one will notice. If
you're a believer in that, it's pretty much what the Damned United's all about, isn't it? It shows where Brian worked his way up through Derby, and then eventually obviously it didn't work out at Leeds, but
I think that was his arrogance that took him there, and I think it was probably a bad choice. I think he wanted to prove that was a dig at Don Revie, I think, you know, and he wanted to prove him wrong, that he could get these
ever since
dirty footballers to play football, but they didn't like him because of what he had done before, so they were never going to work out.
He held a grudge from that FA Cup match where he didn't treat him nice.
He didn't stop in for a glass of wine because that was the tradition. You would stop in by the manager's office for a glass of wine,
and the grudge spilled onto TV and everything. And brilliant film. Okay, best kit ever made.
Best kit ever made. I've got my favourite kit here.
Okay.
Bear with me.
I like this. Actual visual representation. This is fantastic.
Will we get another fact in while we're...
Let's go for it.
Okay. Olivier Giroud, you remember the Scorpion kick goal that he scored for Arsenal many moons ago?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that goal won the FIFA Puskas Award, right, which is the best goal throughout the year of football.
Yeah.
But it did not win Premier League Goal of the Month.
Wow.
Honestly.
Yes.
It's a bit of an insult.
We need to find out. We need to find out what won it that month.
Do you know what I think it is? I think Henrik Mkhitaryan might have scored a Scorpion kick a couple of days before, and the vote was maybe closed by the time, because it was around the New Year's Christmas games that he scored that. So that might have something to do with it.
Only contribution that Mkhitaryan made to English football.
I was hopeless.
Yeah, but
that's it. Yeah, you'll be not surprised.
Yeah.
But,
okay. I've not seen that one in a while.
That is my favourite Rangers top. My favourite top. Simply because I think
Do you
it's...
want to hold that up just to
I think it's just the memories that invokes within me.
I see Gaza in that.
Yeah, I see Gaza in that. I see Laudrup in that.
Yep.
I even see the likes of, which we'll talk about later, Mikhailichenko in that.
Yep. I'm glad you pronounced that for me before I tried to.
So you've got... Yeah, this represents a number of different eras, the ending of one era and the beginning of a new, so you had the likes of Trevor Stevens in this, you had Ian Ferguson in this, you had Gaza, Laudrup, so you're moving into the influx of foreign players coming into Rangers.
Is that an original or a reprint?
That's an original.
Yeah,
so I bought that in 94.
Awesome.
So yeah, I think, I don't know if there's a date on there, but... Yeah, that's an original. I actually had a really rare Newcastle United top. It was the third top from 97, long sleeved. You could not buy it now for love nor money, and I bought it for £8 in JGB Sports in Elgin once, just randomly, because it was I loved long sleeve tops. Yeah. And then I managed to sell it on Vinted recently for 120 quid to a Newcastle fan. And my wife was then like, all those tops up there are worth something, right? You've been sitting on this money. And I'm like, well, they probably are all worth something because they're all originals and they're, not really pooled or anything. I mean, you've got a few marks on the air, I suppose. But yeah, they are definitely originals. And that invokes a lot of memories from the old guard, if you like, where you had a lot of Scottish players in the Rangers team and then they got kind of bled out by all the Advocat era coming in at the end of that. So... McCoist, it reminds me of Haitley, a lot of players that reminds me of from when I was a Rangers kid. And I never seen it for years because I actually lent it to my girlfriend at the time and she liked to go to sleep in it. And I never seen it for years after we broke up because I forgot all about it. And then I went round to see her brother one day and I found her wearing it and I was like... You can get back upstairs and give me that back, right?
Yeah, quite right.
So I reclaimed it. I reclaimed it after not having it for a few years. So, yeah, that would be my favourite kit. That one,
awesome.
But yeah,
okay. If we're going to go into the last question, if you could change one thing in football, what would it be? It can be a rule. It can be money. It can be.
Probably two things. One's a very minor thing, I think, and then the other one would be massive. I think the minor thing I think I would change is the handball rule.
Okay.
Because obviously it's changed now to that whole silhouette thing, and I just think a handball's a handball. Mm-hmm. If you're unlucky that your hand hits the ball, if your hands are here, I think then it hits it. That's not a penalty.
No.
Because it would have hit your chest.
Yeah.
If your hand wasn't there, it would have hit your chest. If your hand's out here, your hand is here, anywhere here, it's not going to hit any other part of your body apart from your hand.
Yeah.
So if it hits your hand, it's a handball, that's it, done. That's how it used to be, So I think I would go back to that. I think referees are confused now.
Yeah.
And then it's got so diluted You know, because it's all dependent on the situation, what the guy's doing. You're now trying to predict somebody's movement, you know, and I just think it was so simple before, right? You've really overcomplicated this. So I think that was one thing I would change. And the other thing I would change is the pollution of money within the game, you know.
Would you set a cap or something like that?
I would.
Yeah.
I think there needs, I think we're too late.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, I think we're too late for this. So it is just, you know, this would be ideal if. But I know in America they've got a cap.
I think the Scottish League would be the league to start it in. Where, you know, we're a good league.
We're not overrun with money.
No,
you know.
And it's like, right, let's make Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen, the Mall Cup, the X amount.
Premier League capped that.
Million per season.
Capped that.
Yeah.
You know.
And then give Celtic and Rangers, because obviously they're going to be ones that are over the cap just now, give them 5 seasons to get under the cap.
Yeah.
You know, if they don't get under the cap within 5 seasons, then it's
kind of like what they did with the financial fair play. Do you know what I mean? They gave everyone a leeway period to get in line with it, you know. Not everyone did. But, you know, it's like, I think...
I was speaking of Man City here.
Yeah. and then PSG. It's like I think you do need to... I think there needs to be a cap, but like I say, I don't know if we're too far gone now. You know, I think for the likes of the Premier League, it's too far gone. You know, and people always blame, you know, like non-football lovers are always like, well, I don't know why they get paid so much. They're just kicking a football, and you're like, yeah, they are, but. If I got offered 250 grand a week to kick a football, I'm taking it, you know.
They're also attracting 80,000 people to come watch them kick a football.
Yeah, that's it, you know. So it's. I think we're too far gone for it. America did the cap thing straight away, and then they've got, obviously, I think you're allowed 3 designated players.
Players,
yeah. You know, which would be the likes of your Jermaine Defoe's, your Steven Gerrards, your Frank Lampard, your David Beckham's. You know, these kind of guys who would command more money.
Yeah. They still do a draft in America as well.
They still do a draft in America.
I've tried that on Football Manager. It's fucking impossible.
Listen, I've tried to join the MLS so many times, and I quit within 2 weeks because the rules just confuse me.
This head fucked me like.
The rules confuse me. I just like I'm out. Let's quit and go back to England. It's like. And what a career I've got going right now on Football Manager, by the way. And you know, I'm a Man City legend, me at that, you know. And I got Rangers the Champions League 3 times. I mean, we can dream.
No,
you know?
it's not going to happen in real life.
Not going to happen. We can dream. I took the same team that Clement's got right at the moment, and won the Champions League. That's all I'm saying.
I've got a wee save going on with Bayer 04 Leverkusen just now, and I've got playing some lovely football. I've just taken my first Bundesliga. I did not realise until I started playing that save that they'd never won the Bundesliga.
Oh really?
They've never won it.
Never won it.
No.
And I mean, a good thing I like about I like managing in the German and the French leagues because you can just have as many foreigners as you want.
German league.
99
players in your squad. Yeah. And no, I really enjoy it. And if you finish, I think it's 15th in the Bundesliga, you get 54 million quid.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
It's mental, do you know what I mean? I like German football as well, do you know what I mean? People slagged Harry Kane off for going there, and I'm just like,
no, it's big.
Why? Because it's not the Premier
there.
League.
I've had a few guys on here, and a few guys have been to Germany, and says it's just different over there.
Atmospheres are brilliant, you know.
It's based around the fan. They're all fan-owned clubs, so it's for the fan. Everything's cheap over there.
Yep.
You're, no offence to any local clubs, but you're just as much money to go and see a League 2 game round here as you are to go and see a Bundesliga game over there.
Yeah, that's it.
No brainer.
It's I mean, and prices for shirts and things like that now are expensive as well. That's probably something else I would change because I mean, we all know those shirts cost about £10 to make. Yeah, you know, so it's. I mean, I thought they were expensive when I was a kid.
I will not shamelessly say that I will buy a Celtic shirt every year, and I'll possibly buy that one from the Celtic store, and then if I want an away shirt or if I want a special edition, I have got a place I can get them shirts for 30 quid.
That's it.
You know,
that's it.
But I've already given the club £80 of my money that season, you know. I'm probably going to give the club an extra couple of £100 over games for that season.
Tickets and whatnot.
So I'm quite. I don't feel it's ripping off the club.
No.
You know, I'm a big opinion. I brought up to Belder on episode 4, and he's been a season ticket holder set for years. I think every season ticket should come with a free home shirt. I just think it's the least you can do for fans.
The amount of money that you're forking out for the season
600
tickets.
quid for a season ticket. You can at least give them a shirt. You know that guy's probably buying a shirt for his missus and his kids, and the least you can do is give him a free one.
Well, Nairn gave me a free gilet. All right.
Nairn, if you want to get sponsor a podcast, get in touch.
That's us coming up to an hour 20, mate.
Cool.
Fantastic. Well, we're just going to get a wee bit of Football Manager, and then we're getting into your 11.
Neighbour.
Absolutely. So how did you come to get involved with Football Manager?
Through LinkedIn, which has been brilliant for me, you know, making connections. I'm going to segue slightly and then come back to this. LinkedIn helped me get so many opportunities. You know,
just joined.
Yeah,
just joined.
I would thoroughly recommend it, because it got me. You know, I started thinking, right, well, how can I stand out from the crowd? I'm going to start writing articles. So what can I write about? Right, cool. So I wrote an article about the resurgence of Italian football over the last few years. You know, you had a lot of clubs getting to the semi-finals of years, like Fiorentina and all these resurging themselves. And so I wrote an article about that, put it on my LinkedIn, got a couple of likes. Then I started thinking, right, well, I'll do some interviews, so I'll go and interview some scouts. So I got in touch with scouts that were on LinkedIn and things, like people that I'd worked for. There was Stuart Miller, who's was the director of football at Ross County. He's just gone back to Ross County as chief scout for Scotland. Great guy. Gave me a time of day to ask him all these questions. I then put these articles on my page. I spoke to a few other people, put them on my page, and then the head of the PFSA got in touch with me and said, look, would you like to write some articles for us and do these interviews on our behalf, you know? Yeah. And I was like, sweet. So, you know, I've spoke to the likes of Kevin Thompson, and even a few other people from behind the scenes that wouldn't necessarily be well known, but I have spoke to a few Premiership players and things, and those articles are still to be released, but they're there, they've got them, and you know, I get a little bit of publicity out of that. Yeah. So LinkedIn's been brilliant for me for making connections. So I did start to see a lot of these people doing Football Manager and the FM researchers and things like that, and then I had seen somebody who shared something, and I thought they were looking for people, and they'd put a list of clubs, and Elgin City was on there, and I was like, well, I'm right next door to them, you know. So I sent the message off. Sent the connection request off, and then I could send them a message, and I sent the message just saying, look, this is what I do, this is what I'm interested in. Big fan of the game since it was Championship Manager back in '93. Would love to do it. Yep. I had been put in the game a year earlier, which was just surreal, massive for me. That was another tick in the dream box.
It's on my list. It's on my fucking list. Well, as soon as I'm in that Elgin, I'll be like, fucking can't get me in there. Get me in there.
I mean, it's massive being in there, you know, and seeing yourself, and you're just like, wow, you know, this is brilliant. But it's kind of weird because you always sign yourself. So there are 2 Calum Mckenzies in my team now, and they've both got the same identity, like same day of birth, everything. And you're just like, no, editor, make it better. It's like, so yeah, it's been fantastic. I got in touch with them. They said, yeah, not a problem, we'll do that. Got added to the group chats and whatnot. And there's a lot to it. You know, there's a lot to it. There's some stuff I can't talk about because obviously you just sign something and say, but you know, you get access to the database. It's basically the editor, but bigger. You know, and you can make obviously more changes. So it's been fantastic, and the guys have been really, really good with us because there's a lot to absorb and take in and work out how to do it. And I think just as I was joining, they were changing how they were doing it. So I learned one way, and then we had to learn the new way of changing things. And there are so many rules, and it's been fantastic though. And it's just a privilege to be part of that, you know, which has been a big part of my life, you know, for 30 years, you know. So yeah, it's Football Manager's just
It's life.
It's life, you know. It's
What you average in a year, gaming hours? Do you keep an eye on
I
it?
think probably
I'm hitting 2,000 a year.
yeah. I mean, I would be close to probably 1.5. I think, and I try not to take the mic. My wife is really patient.
A lot of mine, to be fair, since I've had my youngest child, is laptop is open, I'm sound asleep, and Football Manager is playing in the background.
Been there. Yeah.
Quite
I
a
mean,
lot.
I've had relationships end over it. You
Yeah.
know, and it's like just and I mean, I've also had things where like, you know, girlfriends would come downstairs and they'd be like, "You coming to bed?" "Yeah, no, I'm coming to bed. I will be there in about 10 minutes." "Cool." And then they would come down like at 1 o'clock in the morning and like, "Are you still here?" Like, "Listen, I've got Rangers into the Champions League final. You're sitting there with your shirt and tie on. It's the final, all right? I've got myself dressed for the press there, you know." And it's like, and I'm not quite at the point of having pressers on the toilet, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, but yeah, it does overtake my life, you know, and it has been a massive part of my life. And I remember just being chuffed telling people that didn't even play the game and probably didn't have a clue what I'm on about, going, "I'm a Football Manager now." Like, "All right, you know."
That's trust me, mate. I admire you for it. I look up to you for it. That's a light, as I say. To see yourself in a game that you've been playing for 20 years, it's a surreal moment. Like
you feel like you've made it, but you haven't.
Yeah, it's a start.
You
mate.
feel it's a start.
start.
It's a start.
Right, 1:11. We'll probably run slightly over the bit, our kind of usual time tonight, but
Yeah.
we're all right.
Told you
We're
I
all right.
talked.
So I'll run through it and then I'm going to pick it apart. There'll be some names that are more familiar and some names we kind of spoke about tonight. I'll kind of won't skip through them, but
Yeah, goes.
Andy Gorham, Sandy Jardine, Miguel Nadal, Franco Baresi, Ronald Koeman, Lothar Matthäus, Brian Laudrup, Mikhailichenko, thank you. Roberto Baggio, Henrik Larsson, and Ali McCoist. Okay. Right. So the first name I'm going to pick out there is Miguel Nadal, because he's actually the uncle of Rafael Nadal. I didn't realise it until I was doing my research last night.
Yeah.
I remember him. I remember him 2002 World Cup for Spain.
Yeah.
Probably at the tail end of his career.
Yeah. I remember him, and I believe his nickname was the Beast, and he.
It was him and Hierro at the back, wasn't it?
Aye. For Spain and Madrid, and I think he scared me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Him, and the reason why Koeman's in there as well is because he scared me as a child. They both were just beasts of a player.
I've got for Koeman here 535 games, 192 goals, and as things stand, and I know you've got somebody who's probably chapping on the door right now in your own team.
Yeah.
The highest scoring defender of all time in the history of football.
Yeah, and I believe most of them were from free kicks, you know, rather than penalties, for example, you know, like Tavs, you know. It's like, but Koeman scared me. It was just always like, if I was I just intimidating, you know. And the same with Nadal. He was just a big guy, you know, and I think you remember him having like long hair. And it just looked like this lion's mane, you know. He just looked like an absolute animal, and it was like slightly permed because, you know, 90s.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Nadal's curly hair, you know, the tennis boy, and it's just like that. And he just looked ferocious, and the way they defended. And I was quite a physical player myself as well, you know. And then you've got the likes next to him. I've got you know, Baresi, who was a little bit more classy, you know, just as physical, I would say, but was a little bit more classy on the ball, you know. Whereas I think Miguel
Nadal
more
intelligent with his defending.
He was more of a clear it, you know. If in doubt, hit it out, you know, kind of player. And
in backing up that, you got Sandy Jardine, who episode 8 Freezy actually played against him.
Well, I excuse me, I was managed by him for for a game. I won a competition to play at Ibrox.
Yeah,
and I'm full of stories, but I forget half of them. And Jardine was the manager, and then we had Derek Johnson as the manager of the other team.
Yeah.
And so I played at Ibrox, and that was my first time playing on a proper massive pitch, and that pitch is huge.
Yep.
And you get a newfound respect for those professional footballers and the size of that pitch. But yeah, Sandy Jardine, I got to meet him. I've got a photo with him and Derek Johnson and DJ, and what a privilege it was to meet him, you know.
Awesome.
And he's sadly obviously not with us anymore, but
yeah,
you know,
he's got about 700 odd games for Rangers himself.
Yeah.
Like, massive. Right, I'm going to give it Mikhailichenko.
Alexei Mikhailichenko.
So the notes I've got for him, I've had to do a wee bit of research. I remember him, like it's very early,
underrated,
very early memories. Like the name just rings a bell. That's all. I was born in '91, so.
I mean, he played for the USSR, you know.
Yeah,
and then
2 games for Ukraine.
Yeah, and then Ukraine.
It says here that he was played often on the left when he was actually a centre midfielder under Walter Smith.
Yeah, he was very much on the left-hand side, which kind of crippled him.
Yeah,
because you never got to see the best of him. I think he only really got one season in the centre.
Yeah,
and then by that point, we brought in people like Laudrup, and it just kind of pushed him out to the left because Walter wanted him in the team.
Yeah.
So he put him out to the left, and then he was just very underrated, you know. And he was probably him, and I think there was Oleg Kuznetsov that came in at the same time, and they were the first 2 real like influx of foreign players. You had Bonnie Ginsberg, who I think was an Israeli goalkeeper for Rangers as well at the time, and they came in. And they were like the first foreign players to properly come in. And Mikhailichenko was so skillful on the ball, you know, so skillful on the ball. And so I think him and Laudrup would complement each other in that centre position with Baggio.
I would say so. Baggio is, I think this is the first mention of Baggio on the podcast.
Divine Ponytail.
Divine Ponytail. Have you watched the documentary?
Yeah.
Fantastic documentary. And you don't realise how good a football player he was. You know, he's actually known for a penalty miss, and it's a disgrace that he's known for that, considering how good a football player he was.
I mean, I missed that penalty miss because my dad allowed us to stay up and watch it, because obviously it was in America, so it was quite late here, and he allowed us to stay up and watch it. And my brother, I'll never forgive him for it, and we obviously had shared room when we were kids. I fell asleep, didn't wake me. And I missed the penalty. I seen, I think it was, I don't know if it was Donadoni or Albertini. I seen his penalty, and then I fell asleep. That was the last thing I remember. I remember waking up and TV's off, and it was morning, and I was like, no. And then it wasn't as easy back then to find. You had to wait for the paper back then to find out what happened, you know. And Baggio, I think, was always remembered for that penalty miss, but you know, his days with Juventus and things, and was it Brescia, I think how you say
Brescia,
it. I think he was such a classy player again, you know, and that Juventus team that he played in was terrific as well. You know, he was in with Peruzzi and things. So yeah, he's not an often spoke of player, and I think that's a shame.
Yeah,
you know?
It is massively underrated, massively. Yeah. Right, so it takes a lot for a Rangers fan to put Henrik Larsson in his all-time 11. So I'll let you give me your. I'm interested to hear a Rangers fan's opinion on Henrik Larsson.
I'll probably get a lot of hate for it, but I just think he was a hell of a player, you know. And I'll be honest, I'm one of these that can look at Celtic, and I remember their 2003 run to the UEFA Cup final, and I remember going to the beach bar to watch their games when it was looking like, God, you guys might do it, you know. Yeah. And I remember watching them, and I celebrated a Henrik Larsson goal. Do you know what I mean? And I just seen it as simple. I see it as simple as I'm celebrating a Scottish team do well in Europe here, you know.
You're a bigger man than me.
Well, I know, and it's a weird one. I've just been able to look at it with the bigger picture, if you like. It's better for Scottish football, you know. And I love to see players come out of Scotland and do well in Europe as well. And I don't think Henrik got the recognition that he did in Scotland. You bang 36 goals in Scotland, and it's like, well.
Yeah,
not in the Premier League.
European Golden Boot, and just thinks nothing
that's
of
it. I mean, when Coist won his 2 Golden Boots, do you know what I mean? And then it was like, couldn't play at Sunderland. You know,
you'll probably remember better than me, Calum. Do you remember there was the little rumour that went about for about 2 weeks when Larson first cut his hair and he didn't score, and it was like, oh, it's gone.
Aye, that's
it's
it.
gone.
Yeah.
He's his power. It's Samson.
Samson,
you know,
yeah.
it's gone. And then he just started banging in goals and banging in goals.
And suffer that leg break as well.
Yeah.
You know, and still be the same player is remarkable, you know.
I spoke to Jamie Acass last couple of episodes ago and asked him, can you remember a bad time apart from the leg break of Henrik Larsson and Green and White? And he says, no, you just can't.
I mean, the only one I can think of, and he was nowhere near the player that Henrik Larsson was, and that was David Boost for Coventry.
I've heard a lot about this guy. Did he not have a massive injury or something like that?
It was against Manchester United in Schmeichel's box, and he went up for a header and he came down, and as he's come down, his foot has just landed on the side, and somebody's come in and just stood on their foot, just not intentionally, but they thought it was the ground, and they've gone to push themselves, and it's just snapped his leg. His leg was 90 degrees and the bone sticking out. There was blood all over the 6-yard box. And Schmeichel says that he went to counselling for
that's mad.
For months after that. And that was horrific. But I mean, I don't think he played again.
Do you listen to Quickly Kevin, the podcast?
No,
it's a big 90s football podcast. And Dave Boost, they've got a big thing about him on there because they try to make a joke about how he used to sell boosts in the 90s and stuff like that. But yeah, quality name. Okay, and Alan McCoist, just to finish off your 11.
Well, I mean, my greatest ever memory of Alan McCoist was after he had his leg break and he came back, and his first game back he did the overhead kick against Hibs in the Skoll Cup final, which was the League Cup final. That was my greatest ever memory. Also, one of my other tick boxes was I wanted to see Alan McCoist score a goal, because every time I went to see a Rangers game, never got to see a goal from Alan McCoist. I went to see Scotland in 97 at Pataudry. It was one of his final games, and he had knocked the ball past the keeper. I think it was Belarus or someone, and he had knocked the ball past the keeper. It was just treacling in. There wasn't a defender around to stop it. Yeah. And out of nowhere comes David Hopkin and just leathers it into the back of the net, taking the goal. And I was like this close to seeing an Ali McCoist goal, and I will never forgive David Hopkin.
No, he was a terrible player as well.
We only picked him because he played in the Premier League.
Yeah, he was at Leeds,
It was
wasn't
at
he?
that point where we would you got a Scottish dog.
No, it wasn't even that with Hopkin. It was like, this guy's ginger. He must be some sort of Scottish. Like.
He must have some Scots in him, you know.
Thank you for the last hour and a bit,
That's
mate.
all right.
It's been an experience. You've given me a really good insight into scouting, your coaching, your career in football. As I said, I looked up your CV. Anyone wants to, well, it was Dominic actually sent me your CV. I don't know, is it LinkedIn you'd possibly got that from?
It's all on LinkedIn, yeah.
If anyone's got a chance to look at Calum's CV, I'd recommend it, because if anyone's needing a role filled in football, this is your man.
I collect job titles.
Okay, your last question, Calum. There's one penalty to save your life. Who's taking that penalty?
Who's taking it? I'm going to have to say Tavs.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to say Tavernier at Baggio. And sore point. And I'll have to say Tavernier. In the modern game, I'd have to say Tavernier. If we're going back maybe 20 years, I would say Alberts. George Alberts.
The hammer.
You know, what a speed he could kick a ball at, you know. Yep. So I would say, I would probably say Tavs. If I was lucky enough to have Tavs and Alberts in the same team.
Yep.
Then I would do one of them.
If I had them two in the same team, I'd be quite worried. So throw Amoruso in there as well.
That's it. Amoruso, what a guy. No fair of a Cruyff turn on the edge of the 18-yard box. That guy, you know.
Thanks everyone for listening. Yep. I did mention in my last episode, I doubt we'll be there by that point, but if we can get 50 little ratings on Spotify, I'm now on YouTube. I'm now on. I was always on Apple. I'm now on TikTok.
Oh wow, yeah, I've seen them, yeah.
And I've started putting up Facebook reels and things. Yeah. We're moving forward with this podcast. You're slowly dragging me into the technology age, but So
Not kicking and screaming, no.
no, actually not. No, but it's been fantastic. Blackie's episode in last couple of weeks. Bearing in mind that we are recording this a few weeks. I think over all platforms we had about 500 listens.
Yeah.
So really,
good.
really
Yeah.
positive. I don't actually know who's coming. I'm not scheduled my next lot of guests, so I don't actually know who's coming for episode 13. I've got a few names, but there will be an episode 13, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Okay, thank you very much.
Are you ready
Thank
for
you.
this?
Oh yeah,
Are you ready for this? The nuclear bomb.
Right. Because
Okay.
you kind of blew me away with Motherwell, so this is.
This is going to make that look like chump change. Ready for this?
Yeah, go for it.
Trent Alexander-Arnold's grandmother
Yeah.
was Sir Alex Ferguson's first girlfriend. Good night.